This is D.
This is C.
And this is
Black Meets World.
Whoop.
Hey, it's good to see you again.
And we back. I'm just going to do it every time. And we back, and we back, and we back.
Any shout out to Chance.
Anytime.
We got a guest today.
We have Jonathan from Blavity,
whoop, whoop.
who is a co-founder and head of
corporate brand.
Perfect. So
it's a sexy title. It's a nice long title. Shout out to that.
It's got like a slash, maybe 2 lines. What's your business card look like?
It's just one joint.
It's actually the front and back of the card.
Probably. You can get an acronym out of that. All right. Well, so we have Jonathan here to tell us more or anything he wants about Blavity and how it got started and how you got involved as a founder.
Yeah, man. So I went to Washington University in St. Louis.
All right. Midwest.
And it's Midwest school, right? And so when I was there, all of my other co-founders and our founder, Morgan, were all sequentially a year apart. So Morgan's in 2012, cool. Aaron's in 2011, and Jeff is in 2010. And so when you're at WashU and you're black, that means there are not a lot of people that look like you. In that regard, it's a PWI. So we had a couple major places on campus where black people would congregate. And depending on what year you went to school at WashU, it looked different. So the time I was there was a actual circular table in the lunchroom. And it usually, like any good lunch table, could seat like 10. On a bad day, it was seating like 15. And what made it really special was that people from other schools, like in the actual university, would come. So obviously, if you're in engineering school and you're black, there's probably like 3 or 4 people. Kids in the B school, if you're in the arts sciences, right? Like we all sort of knew each other. Yeah. And that was the nexus of black life, right? So you talk about politics, you talk about whose album was out, people would run around going first dates out there because you could like finesse the meal points, whatever you needed to do.
Word.
And people from other schools would come over and actually be like, yo, we have a party, what's up? So the term for that was called Blavity, like specifically. So that term originated on our campus. Yeah,
that's dope.
Yeah, so that word actually means black and gravity, and that's one word, right? So it is a description of those times in which you find that cultural moment of belonging, regardless of where you are. So Blavity is not tied to a place, it is tied to an experience. So you've probably had Blavity if you are, I don't know, in an environment where there's not that many people like you, and you might go to the bathroom and you look over and you're like, yo, there's a black person here. It's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
In other regards, you might find it in a higher institution of learning, and you look around and you're like, yo, if we're about to read Jim Crow, like, I need to know that, like, I'm not the only person who's going to go through this, like, insanity by myself. And you see, like, a pair of dreads or, like, black hands, and you're like, all right. So when we all graduated, we realized that, like, we missed that, right? Like, your friends go different places in different cities, and so you, outside of a group me or, you know, you guys meet up for trips and things like that, it's hard to kind of have that same community feel. And so our CEO, Morgan, was in the Bay at the time. I had moved to the Bay Area to work at LinkedIn, and she sat me down one day and was like, I have this idea for this company, and I think you could be a part of it. I was like, wow, sounds interesting.
Dope.
What is the company? She was like, I think we're going to call it Blavity, and I think you get involved on the content side of things. And I was like, I don't really know if this is going to work, but I know that you have good ideas and I trust you. And so we can go from there. And so, quite frankly, it's been a whirlwind ever since. And we've grown, our community's grown, we've been able to do some really cool things and do some dope content. So that's been pretty special.
Yeah, that's dope. I never knew what Blavity stood for or what it meant, and so I've always wondered. So I'm glad you elaborated more on that.
That's dope. Yo, like, first of all, the name Blavity alone is super cool, but for some reason I never questioned it.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, a cool spin on, like, black people.
I was just like, it must mean at least black, but I don't know what the Vity is. I just assumed it was just, I don't know, a phrase. So what do you guys, what do you do now? Like, how has this progressed? When did you guys get started? Because now it feels like Blavity is on every social media outlet that I look at. You guys have like a podcast, and you have like a TV space kind of, and you have, you know, your Instagram and Twitter and all this. So how have you progressed and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, when it first started in July of 2014, we actually were an email newsletter. So like the beta version was actually trying to serve you video content that you wanted. So really, if you think about like WorldStar was like peaking back then, right? So it was like every other day there was like a new slap blocks fight down your block.
Okay.
And the idea was like, well, if you're consuming that content, like we also do slam poetry. There's also like hundreds of thousands of natural hair videos. There's comedy. There's documentary stuff. And it's all, in many respects, short form. So why not, build that? And really the content side of things was sort of an acquisition hook to get people involved. We started tracking and paying attention to data, and we realized that when we published content and wrote it, people actually were returning to the site for that. So we did a full pivot and actually started doing content. So we were getting early stage writers and making different content and actually having it be produced by people that shared the same ideology and same thought process of being young and being black and being sort of in that millennial space. And from there, we saw our traffic start to double. And we were really intentional about what social networks we came on first, right? So the idea on media is like, you got to put your content everywhere all the time. But in reality, like, you should be intentional about what you're doing. So if you look at our channels now, you look at Facebook, there's usually a conversation going on there. Now, there was a piece one of our writers, Cecily, wrote about HBCUs versus PWIs.
Yeah,
and that generated a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
But that was on Facebook, people's feeds. People were writing novels about yes or no, I disagree. But on Facebook, on Twitter rather, it's a lot quicker, right? It's here's what's happening, here's the news, here's something you didn't know about. And if you go to our Instagram, it's heavily visual, right? It's like, here's this black art, here is this mural, here is this incredible poem. And so each of those social channels serves a specific purpose, because some people encounter Blavity only on Instagram. Some people are like, yo, I gotta have this content every day. Some people are like, I want to have a conversation around that one piece that like my network is talking about. So regardless of where you are, each of those social channels is built to actually support how you engage with Blavity. Obviously, the newsletter too is sort of that daily piece as well, on every Friday. So
yeah, I mean, I use the Blavity email to like drive some of our conversation. Like I look through it because I know it's a list of current topics. I'm like, okay, we can talk about this, we can talk about this. I need to find a couple articles on that. So
oh shit, I didn't even know you did that.
Oh yeah, girl. That's
okay.
how honestly, like between Blavity and I Don't Do Clubs, like that's how I know where and when things are happening, or like what's gone on in the news. Kind
I like
of
that.
in our
it's like a go-to space. It's like, I don't need BuzzFeed. And
and as much as I love BuzzFeed, I just liked the way that Blavity presented content, but I didn't really realize the different ways in which you disseminate it. So having channels is awesome. I never thought about that. So it's cool to be getting all the inside scoop. I like that.
So I'm personally inspired. So we were invited by Blavity to go to the Southwest Porch during the Empower Her conference. Mm-hmm. And that's when we originally met, and that's when I met Morgan and Aaron and some of the other co-founders. And I was just like, yo, these are young black people doing some really cool things that like are going to affect a lot of other people of color in a great way, right? Like you're putting us on in a place where like talking about travel. All right. That's one thing that, traditionally black men and women haven't been doing in the past, right? But now we have this new travel space we're in. You're also talking about current events. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about things that affect, you wrote an article, remind me of the article. It was like 21 things
every black man should hear.
Yeah. Don't hear
and it was great. And I was just like, yo, it's like a young brother actually talking about something in a positive space.
Very
and I'm all about, showing a different narrative of what you kind of already see in media, right? Mostly when you see a black man, you kind of think, oh, if he's famous, he must be in sports, he must be a hip-hop artist, or he must be all these other things. But there's no other forms, I guess, or forums to show us in any other capacity. So it's like showing other ways to convey like who we are as black people. And I think that's what Blavity is definitely hitting on. And that's why I'm gravitating towards it too.
Yeah, awesome. And I think also y'all are just woke. Like there's a certain conscious element of it. We follow you on Instagram, and even seeing the murals and the art and that kind of thing, it's like, oh, this is so cool. Like, this is I don't know other outlets that are constantly doing that or getting the emails, and it's
As
like
consistent, yeah.
somebody's ass shot, but also the political debate. Like, we get all it runs the gamut of Black news, so it's ratchetry, but also a lot of consciousness as well.
Yeah, I mean that's why. I mean that's what you see in the on our Twitter bio. It's like sophisticated ratchet, right? So it's this idea that you can contain multitudes. So you can talk about planned obsolescence, but you can also talk about the entire canon of Gucci Mane and why you appreciate it. And those things can occupy similar spaces.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And they do for most of us. Like if you really, this would never happen because people want to keep their jobs, but if you really disseminated somebody's group me, it would be like savagery mixed with like deep intellectual banter.
You're so right.
so
Like that's what your text threads look like.
Yeah.
It's like I have a bunch of homegirls, and I know for a fact that like right now the only thing being talked about is Solange's album and how it potentially relates to like their love life or how they see themselves, but also like they're probably sending Cardi B memes to each other. Right? Saying like, and those things coexist. And the idea that they don't is, I think, a falsehood that a lot of us have been subjected to. So it's like you got to be like one or the other. I don't know. Like you got to be Cornel West or, you know what I'm saying, you got to be Cardi. Like,
Right.
There's no in between. But we're multidimensional people. Yo, that's what I do love about like being in group chats. Because I don't know about y'all, but I'm in like a few group chats, right? So it'll be some that with like my friends from college, we still kick it. It's actually called Melanin Mafia. We still like kick it to this day. Whenever I go back to Atlanta, like we always get up and it's like, I think the ratio is like 4 girls and like 5 guys or something like that. And we talk about everything, but it's just one of those things. It's like, we can talk about things that we're upset with what happened in the media and what happened in Charlotte last week or things like that. Then we go into like,
did you watch last night's episode of Empire? And like,
right, well, we ain't talking about no Empire. No, but
that was the first example. Like, you don't have to shade me. Listen, we're all in those group chats. My college one is called NMFC, Not Many Fucks Coalition, and we talk about.
That's actually a good one.
It's hilarious.
I like that.
And it runs the gamut as well. So I agree with you. The group chat sort of experience is awesome. Just that you have that like idea in your mind.
Not many
fucks coalition.
All right, I just want to make sure I got it right.
There's no fucks in the group chat. So where are you guys at now? I mean, on the Instagram, you have those 2 Black girls talking about stuff. What is that about?
Yeah, so those are actually 2 USC film school grads, and they're talking about movies, but they're analyzing it, but it's also culturally relevant. So we do a lot of original video content, and we've done that from jump. So if you go on our YouTube channel, you can actually see back in 2014 we were starting to do that and test it out, and now we've been able to sort of build an audience around specific things. So they're reviewing and dealing with new movies because they are very good at it. Like they are actually trained to sort of dissect a film. But what makes it interesting is like to have 2 Black women and also have it be relevant, right? So the scaling criteria, right, is like you're looking at Boys in the Hood or Medea's, right? And so it's like they're telling you how they articulate the film in a manner so it doesn't feel like aloof. Because like chances are you're not going to go to a film website unless that's where you actually get that information. But I think that's what makes what we do pretty interesting is we can sort of intersect that and be like, yo, I saw this film, I disagree, I thought it was dope, and you can leave your own film review. So everybody gets to be a critic in that regard. But that's part of our original content strategy, which is trying to figure out what conversations are ongoing, how can we make sure that we are showcasing the voices and we're also giving our audience things that they need and they want at the same time.
Cool. I want to go on get into like where Blavity is going because I've seen Morgan doing like, because I follow her on Snapchat, being in the Bay Area and a part of a lot of tech. And mind you, I'm not exactly sure what is going on out there, but it looks like some amazing stuff in the tech world, especially when it comes to millennials and minorities and stuff like that. But I wanted to get into where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you said you're from New Hampshire.
I am.
Are you one of all 5 black people that live in the entire state?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, New Hampshire is in a 3-way tie for the least black place in America. So
Jeez.
usually it's us, Maine, and Vermont. So
I was gonna say Dakotas.
yeah, no, they have more. So you're looking at a state that has 3% or 2% depending on the year.
Jeez.
Wow.
So yeah, it's me and my brother, and my parents are still there. So yeah.
Damn.
Okay, wait. So what brought your parents to New Hampshire?
Yeah, so my grandfather was actually sick. So my dad was in the military station at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and he decided as the oldest he wanted to be around for that. So he moved, and they settled in New Hampshire. And he was always into technology and stuff, so he got a job doing that. And at the time, New Hampshire was a lot of farmland, so it was really undeveloped. But one of the things about New Hampshire that's interesting is like there's no sales tax, so it actually was in many respects like a tax haven for certain people to start businesses because it's lower overhead. So they ended up doing that. It was actually a pretty good place to raise a family, quite frankly. You're not that far from Boston, and my grandparents were in Rhode Island, so it was like actually like a 2-hour trip.
Oh, okay.
So that made it a lot easier being in New England. And so they just ended up staying, and my brother was born there. I was born there, but my family is like not from there, right? So my mom is from Trinidad and Tobago, and my dad's family like is from the South. So like you sort of feel like a transplant in a state like New Hampshire. But it's funny because my inputs growing up were super black. Like my mother has had an accent my entire life. She'll never lose it. Trinis don't lose their accents, and it's wonderful. Carnival? I have not. So this is an interesting story. So my mom used to keep me, like I was always trying to go, and she was like, "No, you're too young. You're too young." No. But I'll probably go play Mass, if not next year.
I'm playing Mass next year.
Yeah, so I need to figure that out. Okay, yeah.
Outfit.
So this is the thing. The planning begins now.
Yeah.
I need to like go there and like really see some family though. Like I need to stop playing. Like I can't show up, play Mass, and leave. Like I would be deaded. Like that's
the
not
obligation.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's like little cousins I haven't seen. Like they're old now. Like people got babies, they got kids, and like that's. I gotta go say what's up. And thing is, there's nothing that travels faster than West Indian gossip. Like this, it is the fastest thing on the planet. It's faster than Twitter. Forget about your bit rate on your terabyte speed. Like West Indians can figure out what's happening, and legitimately, like if I was to get engaged tomorrow and not tell anyone, in like probably like 3 days, my mother would know. Like I don't know how the message would be carried, but there's like someone would send a pigeon and it would just show up and they'd be like, "Your son is wildin'." And so, you know, it's funny to see everyone grow up now, but also like my aunt's always checking on me and being like, "What are you doing? What's up?" And so going there is really important, and spending time and making sure that they know that I care about them, and the perspective is important too, because it's like not the U.S.
Right,
right,
not American, in that regard. But we are at the same time, so
that's cool. I've never been to Trinidad, so this will be my.
It's on my list.
First trip.
I'm going in 2018, I think.
See, when you say stuff like that, I don't know what the hell that means. Because let me tell you something. I barely know what I'm doing in 2017.
Like I have all of my trips planned out.
2018. Say what?
I just have all of my. Anytime I'm leaving the country, like my trips in general are planned for the next 3 years.
What?
Yeah, I have a list. It's in my notes on my phone.
As a person who's in a different country almost every other week, I usually plan.
I don't know how you survive. Like today, she said she was going to plan a going away party for somebody, and was like, "Oh, I might be in Cuba." I was just like, "You don't know that? Like, you don't have a."
I still haven't booked like a hotel or nothing for Cuba, like at all.
All right. Anyway, so
but I was saying Trinidad. I'm super excited about, and I'm taking like literally the flight. I think is like we go up in the air and we come straight back down to go to Tobago.
Oh, it's love. Oh man, Tobago is special. They have a jazz festival. A lot of people don't know this. They have a jazz festival every August, and it's like a real life thing. So Tobago is beautiful. So you should definitely go check that out.
I'm excited.
All right. Well, kind of back to Blavity. What sort of like obstacles have you guys had to face? You know, it's only been 2 years, and it feels like it's been a lot longer, to be honest.
Yeah, because you've made so much traction.
Yeah, like how have you been able to create so much in the last 2 years, and what have you had to like overcome in the space?
Obstacles.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different ones, right? I think when you're talking about building anything, you're talking about being very cognizant of knowing what you don't know. So for me, right, like I'm a rookie. Like there are a lot of things in my role. I spent a lot of time in rooms where people don't know who I am. Most people that come in don't look like me. There's obviously assumptions about what I'm capable of, what I'm trying to do. And so you have to know who you are first. I think one of the other things that you encounter too is like, how do you build something that you know people need, but give it to them in a way that makes sense for where they're at? And so you can't just present something out there and walk away and be like, it's dope, come get it. Right? You have to be willing to put in enough work to actually build that focus and build that audience and earn that trust.
Word.
And I think for us, we earn that trust in many respects under fire, because right after we launched, you're talking about Ferguson, right? You're talking about July 2014, right? So like, we were legitimately reporting on things that other people weren't. And I think for a large part of our audience, that's the people have been known from the beginning. That's what they knew us for, was being able to like really talk about what was going on the ground and maintaining that actual feel of what you would want from the news, because those things were breaking overnight.
Yeah.
And all of us were going to those places and realizing that like CNN wasn't telling us the truth and MSNBC wasn't keeping it 1,000. And so Twitter was where you were learning.
Yeah.
You were going to DeRay's timeline and be like, okay, so I see what's going on Vine. I see this video. Yeah. Now I know how people are actually being treated. And I mean, I think it's special that we were part of that conversation. I think what makes it difficult in media is that everything is changing, right? So you have to know what's coming. You have to anticipate sometimes what you can't see, but you also have to remain grounded on what you said you were going to be and who you said you were serving from the beginning. Because people have long memories but short attention spans. And so on the internet, people will remember the minute you did them wrong, but they might not remember the last piece of content they read, because there's another piece.
All of that you just said was dope. Yeah. So how does it work that you guys aren't all in the same place? So how does it work that you're like spread out as co-founders?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just figured out how to communicate with each other in the best means, right? So obviously we've known each other, so we know how to sort of engage. Slack's a big part of that, so you can sort of communicate consistently.
You said Slack?
Yeah, Slack's a big deal. So that helps us, keep our team sort of engaged with a lot of writers. We have a lot of things going. We have an entire marketing team, social team, sales team. So
how big is your team now? Like, how big is the, I guess, like, employee pool of Blavity now?
Yeah, you're looking around 14 people.
That's huge for a startup.
Yeah, and then also we have dozens of contributing writers and staff writers and people that sort of are in and out of what we'd call the Blavity fam. And so it's kind of making sure we have they're all set up for success in whatever that looks like for them. That's cool.
Word. So, a lot of what you just said kind of applies to us, because we are only in we just started our second year of the podcast. And so we're working on that, like working on consistency and sort of under promising, over delivering to whatever audience we have. What would you suggest for Black millennials in this like digital space, and like how to begin processes and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, man, this is something I struggle with myself. So I think before you begin or you build or you do whatever, you have to be very, very clear on what it is that you want. Full stop. Like when you're by yourself, because a lot of people don't want to exist in silence. This is something that I spend a lot of time doing, is like, when you're by yourself, what is the thing you want to see? When someone encounters this podcast, like, what do you want them to feel? Like what when they walk away, even if let's say they hated the episode, it's much better to have someone evoke an emotion than to be apathetic. Apathy is possibly the worst thing ever, because it doesn't move you. There's no touch, there's no feel. That's why when you hear an album doesn't touch you stop listening. Right? Name an artist you forgot. You can't. You don't know who they are.
Right.
So I think that's the first step. I think the second thing is know where the people you are actually. Because there's a lot of assumptions about where people hang out digitally, and those don't always level up to the actual reality. So if your audience consumes things on SoundCloud, then perhaps you should optimize for SoundCloud. So that should be the first thing they see. If they're like, many respects, they're iTunes heavy, and that's how you show validity. Then you make sure you get certified on iTunes first, and that you distribute your episodes there and SoundCloud and all those things. And then you also use guerrilla marketing tactics, right? Word of mouth is, I think, overlooked, but it is incredibly underestimated.
Word.
Like that's how people actually pop. Still, if you think about a New York artist that's really moving out here, that's how people were doing it. It's like everybody has the same story. They were like, we're going to all the clubs, we're going to,
we selling CDs
out
our trunk.
You're talking about J. Cole, who was like, yo, I was committed. You were not going to deny me.
They all know that.
Don't bring up J. Cole around here, because here we go.
I just appreciate what he's doing in the young black conscious space.
Oh my God.
Listen.
No, but I hear you. Like today, there was a screening for Birth of a Nation, and
I wanted to touch on that, but I'm like, that's a heavy conversation.
No. This is not about that.
All right.
And so I was telling somebody that I was gonna go, but then I had another obligation. I was like, oh, we have to record for our podcast, blah blah. And he was like, yo, you have a podcast? And I was like, yeah, I thought I told you about it. But he was just like, oh, like blah blah blah, what's the name of the podcast? I was like, it's Black Meets World. He was like, yo, I'm about to look that up right now. Like, that's dope. Where can I find it? And I was like, iTunes, SoundCloud. He was like, all right, bet. It was something very little, and he was so excited about it. And I was like, damn, he might listen and really enjoy it and tell his friends, you know? So it's little things, I hear you, like, that will go a long way.
Yeah. You got to give people things. I think people underestimate the idea of, like, gift giving. When you discover something and you love it, what's the first thing you do after you're like, who do I need to share this with?
Right. Tell a friend.
Who in my network that I care about do I want to also have a chance to experience this dope thing? And that if you don't think that way about what you're making, stop making it. Like, if you don't think what you're doing is worth giving to someone else, and it doesn't like help you come alive, like, don't do it. Like, you don't have that much time.
You over here dropping gems.
Just straighten
all this wisdom.
You got like these one-liners that I just like, wish that they were like coming up in words.
I can read them.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Word.
That's really good. This is really good advice. I'm over here like jotting down notes in my own head.
Right.
Like,
for this, for life, for other things. Exactly.
Get a new job.
Silly. So, how old are you?
26.
So, how do you feel at 26?
That's a very vague question.
It's interesting. I've been doing this. I don't know, man. This was like a really transformative year for me, like, on a couple different levels. It's been super, super hard. I've had to do a lot of growing up. I've had to examine a lot of things about myself. Look at some inconsistencies I've had and be like, is this the type of person, are you being the type of person you want to be? If not, what things are keeping you from being that person? Is your circle as tight as you think it is? I think there's a lot of times, I don't know if it's specific to New York, but I've as a person who's what I think is classified as an ambivert, so I'm both an extrovert and both an introvert, depending on the feeling. You can really put yourself in a different space if you're not careful about who is getting the best of your energy. And as a person who spends a lot of time in rooms, there's sometimes I just cannot be around people, and it's not even personal. And I had to get good with realizing that, like, I'm not trying to hurt this person. I'm actually doing myself a favor, because if I'm not my best self, then I'm not giving them what they deserve if I say I care about them. And that means I need to go in my cocoon and go make some tea and read The Economist or do whatever I want to do and just be good for those moments. Word. So when I come out, I'm like fresh. The other side, I think, is for people who are sort of who've started to build any type of influence or credibility. This is something I realized like a couple weeks ago. The side of you that people like the most does not mean they actually know you. Ooh. So if you're a really likable person, that's just the side of you that people want the most. That does not mean you're obligated to give that to them when they say they want it. And I've seen a lot of people in my life go through a lot of different things because all they felt like they were worth was the thing that drew people to them. That, in many respects, is your gift. That doesn't mean that everyone is deserving of seeing that all the time.
Are we preaching
at a high level? So for me at 26, I've been like, man, why am I unhappy in these spaces? And I'm like, because I'm not able to be myself in this space. So I either need to change my environment or change the spaces I end up in more frequently.
Word.
I'm so glad I asked that question.
That was a really, you packed that in really well, and you're able to articulate that really well, which I think for a lot of people just in general aren't able to articulate exactly how they feel, where they are in their mental space, or like in terms of life. I know for me as a 29-year-old, I'm learning. 29? I know. Wait a minute. Hold on. As a 29-year-old, I'm now learning. See, you need more than 4 hours of sleep a night. You need to have that moment where you can kind of be by yourself, so you can re-energize and go back out. You know, and the nature of my job, I'm on for 8 hours. Literally, I'm walking around. I'm presenting. I'm getting people excited and amped. And like after that day, I really don't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
And like, there might be instances where I need to take clients out, or I need to go entertain. I have to do things like that. But it's just like everybody needs a reset button, and I was burning out. And until I did, it was like when I spoke to other people and kind of had like a little mental check-in, it was like, you know, that's not normal, right? Like, it was one of those. But it's good you're able to self-actualize and understand that about yourself. You know what I'm saying?
I think both of y'all hit on basically self-care. Like, how do you take care of yourself? Shout out to Solange for, you know, just taking the time to build on herself. Like, she posted the other day on Instagram saying that she wrote Cranes in the Sky 8 years ago. And she just wasn't ready to release it. And I'm like, yo, that's some introspective shit. Like, for you to take that long to release this piece of art when you think it's ready. Like, not when everybody wants you to, or when you think it might be best received. Like, when you think it's where it should be is what you're doing. And so both of you definitely hit on that. I mean, at 24, like, I'm just out here trying to function. Like, I feel like I'm just trying to figure out where I'm most comfortable and surround myself with those people that I'm most comfortable
you are
with.
Extremely mature for your age.
Thank you.
You're like, I'm gonna give you this compliment too, because you know we be going back and forth. But like, you're very mature. Like, I feel like despite the fact that we are who we are, and there is like a small age gap, we trade places. Like, I'm like the goofy young one, and you're like, I'm sorry, can we have some order, please?
I am. But you've also helped balance me out. There's so many people I've met because of you, and just like stuff that I've learned I just got to deal with because you're like, D, like, it's not that serious, and that's good. Like, I need that. So that's what I mean, like, surrounding myself with people who can also balance me out but teach me things and keep me in a positive space.
Also, I just want to interject, I also realized I don't need trash in my life. I have, my subconscious is very strong. I don't want to consume trash on TV. I mean, I don't watch any reality TV shows. If anybody knows me, I don't watch any of the reality. I don't watch no Kardashians.
We
I don't
missed
watch no Love and Hip Hop.
The Hip Hop Awards the other night because we were watching the debate.
We were watching the debate. Oh, how we evolve.
Right.
Like, granted, I'm from Atlanta, born and raised, trap music, Gucci Mane. I'm so glad you brought up Gucci Mane earlier. That is what I know, and I know it well. But like, at the same time, I can only have so much of it before it starts creeping into my subconscious. I'm like, be at work trying to fight like a little white girl. Like, why do I feel so aggressive? You know what I mean? Like, you have to balance what you allow yourself to consume. So that's like another thing too.
Oh, girl, I have some good work stories.
That's next episode.
You're right. So
this is good.
Yeah, I think we can wrap up this episode. This has been amazing. Thank you.
Wait, I want to know where Blavity's going. What Blavity has going on. What they have coming up. Anything else going down?
I was gonna get there.
My bad. You know, that's why we tag team.
A couple of things. So we have a tech conference in the Bay Area on November 11th and 12th.
Super
it's
cool.
called Afrotech, so that'll be dope.
Yo, I saw that.
I saw that too.
Yeah.
I love that name too.
I really was
dope.
trying to figure out if I should write a proposal at my job to like go to.
No, you absolutely
actually should go.
It's about to be a movie. Like I really,
she's an engineer.
I wish I had another way to describe it, but it's gonna be monumental.
I'm so proud.
You and
of
I
what y'all
gonna link
doing.
about that right after this.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Yeah, we can figure it out.
Cool.
And we're doing that, and then we got some cool original content dropping. We're doing some pretty unique things in regards to our lifestyle brand. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Blavity Life, but there's some cool stuff popping there. So stay in the mix for that. And we've got some cool written content and some different stuff coming up in the end of the year. So
awesome.
Just forward progress.
So tell us where you can find Blavity.
You can find us literally everywhere. So we're Blavity everywhere on Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, obviously Blavity Life as well across those channels. And then I don't know if people are still hip to this, but we have a foodie Instagram.
Yeah,
Blavity
I discovered
Foodie.
that recently.
Yeah.
It's super
so that's
cool.
so that's
know.
really for like if you ever have like hunger pains or you just like want a young recipe.
I cook
go to
constantly,
Blavity Foodie.
so
Go to
I'm
Blavity
like,
Foodie. It's black hands, dope food, clean eating.
See, I love
Sign
that,
up for our
man.
newsletter. come through.
Come
Good
through. Bet. And where can we find you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and I do Snapchat, but like I feel like I can only be on Snapchat for like once during a function, then I delete it because it stresses me out. But I'm at Twitter and Instagram at Jon_Jackson. So you can find me there.
Oh, y'all, this food looks lit. Coming from somebody who cooks all the time.
And coming from somebody who eats all the time.
It's wavy, yeah. It's wavy.
Right. So Blavity is spelled Blavity for those of you who don't know. So find them.
Check them out.
All these platforms. There's life. There's food. There's black issues. There's love. We're here.
I swear I be plugging Blavity all the time. I'm like,
all the time. Right.
Like, it's just because it's just so cool.
It's an easy default. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, have you heard about this black news? No, check out Blavity.
Yeah.
Literally, it's that easy.
Yeah. Word.
Okay, cool.
It
You
was
good?
a cool episode.
You got
man.
anything else you want to ask since you was gonna cut me off earlier?
You see how she throw that shade towards me? Damn, let me just stay underneath this tree.
I appreciate
the rest of the episode.
I appreciate you though. I really do.
Thank you guys for listening.
Yes, thank you to Jonathan for being here.
Yes, thank you for coming through.
Of
I haven't
course.
done a.
Shout out to Mac, our producer. Well,
Quietly
our
in the
manager.
shadows.
Yeah, I don't know what's going.
We don't know
And
his
to
title.
Ty for our audio engineer.
Yo, Ty
Hey.
got us feeling real official up in this thing. Shout outs to Ty. We over here drinking.
Having
I'm
a
trying
good
to
time.
really reel it in, guys. Next episode.
She's a
y'all
heavy
gonna-
pour.
y'all
Right, we're
y'all
going to
know
let
what's
loose
up.
and you're going to know. All right, cool. We're going to end this episode right now. Thank you guys for listening. You can follow us on Black Meets World at Twitter, Black_Meets_World on Instagram, Black Meets World on Facebook, and you can email us at blackmeetsworld@gmail.com or info@blackmeetsworld.com.
Love y'all.
Have a good one.
Peace.